Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Second Chance Overland. Time to get some more work done on this classic Wagoneer. And today, we're gonna start working on the brakes. Now, as you can see, I've already pulled apart this right rear drum, everything in it. I originally did that when I was pulling the axles, trying to get the parking brake cable out, and yeah, realized it was just going to be better to pull the end from further up the chassis. So I do have new parking brake cables to put in, so I'm going to work on getting this out, get the wheel cylinder out, give this thing a good cleanup, and then we'll start working on assembly it. All right, so now it's 100% torn apart. Time to get it cleaned up. All right, so I got my new parking brake cable in. I got my new wheel cylinder in. The other side is still completely put together so that I can use it as a reference point, especially since I tore this side apart so long ago. So I've got my cart here with all my parts and tools set up. So I'm going to reference the other side here real quick. And I'm going to take a look and figure out what I've got going on here. And just try to get an idea of what I'm doing, what I need to do, where to start. All right, so we're gonna put our pin back through here. So that part's in there. There are so many clips and springs and things that need to line up when doing rear drum brakes. And it is one of the most fiddly jobs you pretty much can ever do. Alright, so this bracket needs to go in and have the cable end hooked up to it, and then this top piece hooks in to this hole right here on the top side of the shoe, the rear shoe. So that will go in like that. This bar goes back in here. Alright, so that's all together. Definitely fiddly, a bit of a pain in the butt. We got it. Alright, it definitely still needs to be adjusted up, but at least it's all back together. On the other side. Alright, so now we got the rear brakes done. It's time to move on and get the fronts done. I do have basically everything brand new for the front brakes, new calipers, new rotors, new pads. We're just going to do everything on it. So we're going to start by pulling the caliper off, and then we'll start pulling the cap off the hub here. Now on the calipers, it's a 3/8 Allen wrench, and it's just 2 bolts. And the caliper's off. So now we need to take the bearing cap off. And that shouldn't be too bad. There's some grime on here. I'm going to chisel that away here real quick. So we're just going to tap this out. Try to spin it to do it evenly. All right, so the next thing is there's a little snap ring in here. So grab your snap ring pliers, spread that open and slide it over the shaft. And we got this up gear. Now there's going to be 2 specialized nuts on the inside, and you do need a special tool for that. So this is a special socket. It has 4 prongs that goes in and locates on that special nut. Sometimes the outer nut can be pretty tight. This one, not so much. So this is that special nut. You can see it's got 4 little indentations. And so this socket just goes into those indentations so that you can remove it or tighten it. And then there's this little washer That is a bit fiddly to get out. There it is. So this washer has a bunch of holes in it and a little notch that fits into a keyway slot. And on the next nut, there's a little locating tab that needs to go into one of those holes. There's also this little sleeve in there. So there's the second nut and the bearing. So now I can just pull this whole assembly off. And this side was really nasty. Now most modern cars have a slide-on style rotor and a sealed hub that is still attached to the car. These older vehicles are a little bit different, so you actually have the rotor and the hub all put together into an assembly with the bearings inside. So there's a seal on the back side here that we're going to pop out. So there's the old seal and the inner bearing. Man, this stuff is nasty. So now the hub is actually held on to the rotor by the studs. So we need to knock these studs out. And to do that, I grabbed some of the old lug nuts. I'm just going to spin those on there. Now we're trying to protect the threads here when we knock these out. And these old lug nuts I'm not going to reuse. I have new ones for the new wheels. We're just going to take our sledge and knock these out. And just like that, the stud is out. One down, 5 more to go. Now I just got to get the rotor to release off the hub. So to do that, and just like that, the rotor's off the hub. Now we can take this whole hub over to the parts washer and get it nice clean and start working on reassembly. All right, so I got the hub all cleaned up, ready to go. New bearing races in. Now I need to get the bearings themselves in, at least the inner. But you don't want to put the bearings in dry. You need to pack them with grease. So I've got this handy little grease packing tool. Bearing just drops in. Press down. And it pushes grease through the bearing. So drop that in there like that. I'm going to grab our new seal. I'm just going to put a little bit of grease in the lip here. So to hold tension on the shaft, once the seal is in, there's a little spring inside there. So this will actually help to make sure that the spring does not pop out. And we just need to tap the seal in. You want to make sure you do it even. There are seal driver tools out there. That help make this easier. also going to grab some grease and just put it into the middle of the hub here. And now we can install our new rotor. So we're going to lay that over the top here, line up the holes, drop our studs in, and we just got to get these studs set. All right, so now the studs are all set, we can actually put this assembly back on the spindle and start getting this thing reassembled. There it is. So now we can take our outer bearing that we already packed, slide that up in there. Then we're going to take our inner nut, which has the little nipple on it. We're going to go ahead and get that in here. So then our washer with all the holes. And this is where it gets fiddly because that little nipple needs to go through one of those holes. And it's not quite lined up. And there it is. So now we can take our outer nut and get it spun on. Put our sleeve back in here. There we go. So you got to get the splines to all line up. So to do that, you have to spin the rotor and hub around so that'll slide in on both the splines on the axle shaft and the splines inside the hub. Put our snap ring on, and then we just need to put our cap on. So now we can actually move on to bolting the new caliper on and replacing the brake line. I actually think I'm going to do the brake line first here. Alright, last but not least, hooking up the brake line. Alright, there we are. The brakes are done. The only thing left to do is to get fresh fluid in the system and bleed it all the way through. But it's all done. That is awesome. So glad to finally be making some progress on the Project Grand Wagoneer. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. There's definitely a lot more to do on this old Grand Wagoneer. So we'll see you next time on Second Chance Overland.